Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to Wellness by Design today. If you have pain or stiffness when you move, you're going to want to listen to this podcast and watch this show because my guest, Robin Eisen, helps people with that. It shouldn't be part of how we move. We shouldn't experience pain, and she's going to share some great wisdom with us today. So I'm really excited to have Robin in the show today. Welcome, Robin.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Well, I'm really excited about you being here and your background. So, you have a practice, a live practice where you see people um, hands on for body work, you call it. It's not just physical therapy. And you also do face to face coaching and an online practice as well. So that's kind of interesting that you do body work online. I'm sure when we go through the conversation, people will understand exactly how you do that. And so you help people reduce physical pain and feelings of overwhelm so that they can feel better in their bodies. And you use various modalities, including the Feldenkrais method, which I'm really excited to share with people. Cranial sacral therapy, again, I don't think a lot of people know about that, so that's really fun to talk about. And EFT tapping, lymphatic drainage, mechanical link, and bio individual nutrition. Very interesting, Robin. What a background.
Broad spectrum. Yeah.
Yes, yes. So you started out, I know, as a physical therapist, and now you've got all these other modalities as tools in your toolbox. So how did you come to start doing that? How did you move from, I wouldn't say just because physical therapy is a big field in its own, but how did you come to add in all these other modalities as well? What was the reasoning behind that?
Well, like most people, it's a long journey, and I had my own health challenges. But even back when many moons ago, when I did my physical therapy training, I never felt comfortable working with my patients in the hospital doing body parts. I didn't understand why it didn't make sense back then, but
Mm.
I just knew something was missing. And I mean, I cringe when I think about putting patients on pulleys after they had a shoulder manipulation, and we'd stick them in these mitts and they'd be on these pulleys and cranking their shoulders to get range of motion. They were in terrible pain. And I felt terrible in my own body, watching them, but I didn't
Mm.
know what else to do. I mean, this is how I was trained. And then over time, when I developed some of my own physical problems and aches and pains, and I'd go to my colleagues for treatment, and I'd come out thinking, well, what was that? Like, you know,
Mm.
it wasn't really helping me. And so I guess you could say I stumbled upon the Feldenkrais method. You know how you get led, somebody's watching and
Yeah.
guiding. But I ended up in a free class with a woman named Gabi Yaron. She has passed on. She was one of Moshe's original students, Moshe Feldenkrais, who developed the Feldenkrais method. Um, and I was lying on the floor with a small group of people. We were doing this process with her, and she's walking around, and she comes over and she stands over me and she said, "Your sacrum isn't moving." I was like, okay, well, that's interesting. What does that even mean, right? And so I became interested after that class, and then went down the path of training, of Feldenkrais training, which is 3 years of training over several weeks. It's about 40 weeks of training. And then I started to realize, wow, we're not just a body part here and a body part there. Like, we're connected. And that
Mm.
method really helped me understand why I wasn't getting better in my own with my own issues, and why my patients, some got better. They had a little simple problem, right? But a lot of them weren't, and they became chronic. And then, of course, after that, I got introduced to craniosacral therapy. And, little by little, I'm a lifelong learner. I'm
Yeah.
always interested. And I try something, and if it feels good, then I may continue to get treatment for myself and then get trained and then see how it works with patients. And then I also developed a gastrointestinal problem and couldn't get help. And for years, just trying to get better, even with alternative treatments, functional medicine people. And I stumbled upon this fabulous program called Bioindividual Nutrition with Julie Matthews. She started out with autistic children. And then, of course, parents wanted to be treated. And so she's now treating adults. And it's similar to Feldenkrais, or looking at the person as an individual. We respond differently to our environment. So the keto diet isn't great for everybody,
Right.
Not all diets are going to fit each person. So when you can start to look at them as individuals, you can then get to the root of the problem, which I know is something that you talk about a lot with your tribe. We can't just treat the symptoms. We have to dig a little deeper. So.
Oh my goodness, Robin, I don't even know where to go next. There's so much like juiciness in what you're doing. First of all, I love that you recognize that, well, if you've got pain in your elbow, or you're not just going to work on your elbow, we're connected, not just the physical body connected, but our mind, our spirit, it's all connected. And so we have to look at the whole person. And I love that you recognize that. And also, when we have problems ourselves or with our loved ones, and we know we're not getting better, it does make us follow these little breadcrumbs that take us on a path of beautiful learning. So what a wonderful path you've been on. So
yeah, long journey.
Yeah. Let's kind of break these down. I really would love to talk about Feldenkrais first, just because I know I had heard of it. Actually, one of my very first clients said she had been she was getting Feldenkrais done, I guess you'd call it. So I had heard of it, but I've never had the opportunity to have it or learn really much about it. So I did hear about it too in this book I was reading called Energy Healing. And so it was in there. I'm reading a book now called The Body Keeps the Score. And I know that that's one of the modalities that he suggests as well for trauma that ends up getting stored in the body. So I know it's about body awareness, but let's hear a little bit. Give us the big picture of what Feldenkrais is.
So Feldenkrais himself, of course, again, just like the journey many of us had knee problems. And, he was told that he was just going to basically be disabled. They may have offered him surgery at one point that he declined. And he started to work on himself and was able to get up and be functional, even though he still had this knee or these knees that didn't look great on X-ray, right? And so people started to ask him, like, so what did you do? So he started playing around with people, and he developed this method that really has two parts. One is called awareness through movement, and that is something that you are guided to do with verbal cues, and it can be done individually or in a group. And of course, it was originally done in person. Now that we've shifted, I hate to say it, but one of the gifts of COVID, so much has gone online, and people realize that they can do this teaching online. The second part of Feldenkrais, and I don't mean it in a hierarchy, but there's another piece to Feldenkrais, and that is called functional integration. So awareness through movement is called ATM lessons. And then functional integration, people will refer to as FI. Functional integration is a hands-on technique. Okay. That is taking the information that you might impart to someone verbally and actually guiding them through with your hands. Now, you might give a few verbal cues, but it's kind of taking out the thinking process. The person doesn't have to take in the information auditorily and then think about it and then execute it. You're guiding the person through it. And then at the end of the FI, you might say to the person, this is something you can continue at home, pay attention to this or that. Um, the one thing I want to, oh, go ahead. Do you have a question?
Well, I was just going to say, so that people can kind of get an idea of it, could we even just run through a little part?
Yeah, I'm going to
Is
show
that
you a few
possible?
things. Yeah, and I just want to say, number one, if you're driving and listening, please don't do this. You can come back and listen. Um, uh, this is not an exercise. So it's not something that you would say to someone, move this way or watch me and do what I do.
Mm-hmm.
You 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 hear the cues and then you tune in and you do the movement and you pay attention. That's why it's called awareness movement. Pay attention to how you are doing the movement, trying not to judge it, which is
Right.
difficult for a lot of us. And then as we go through different variations of the movement, we come back to the original movement, you see whether or not it changed. And when I give the cues, what I'm doing is I am giving information to your nervous system, to your brain, to make it curious and to have you move in a way that we normally don't do, kind of mixes up the brain and the pattern you're in, because we get into patterns. As a physical therapist and also, a body worker, I can pick people out, from their back walking down the road, knowing how people move. We get into a certain pattern. It's like our handwriting.
Mm.
But the good news is, we can change it. Now, when you try to just change your handwriting and think about, I just want to change my handwriting, it becomes almost impossible. It's so ingrained. So what we're doing is we're talking to your nervous system to say, hey, there's another option. And the body is really smart. It's going to move into the most efficient way possible over
Okay.
time. Then it becomes organic and it becomes more of your habit.
Okay, so it's creating new habits and movement through awareness. So, and
So
by do, is that right?
yes, and so yeah, we're kind of we're reprogramming the brain. We're opening up new neural pathways, either to things you did as a kid that you forgot, and the pathway kind of got shut down, or movement you may have skipped. Like my son never crawled, right? He went from rolling over to standing to walking, right? So he missed that developmental piece. We want to go back sometimes and bring that in. What does crawling do? What is it doing to the spine and the nervous system? So I'll give you, so here's a little example. Just go
Okay.
ahead and cross your hands, and put your hands in your lap.
Okay.
And then just notice which thumb is on top.
Yep.
It could be your right, could be your left. Now,
For me, it's my right.
uncross your hands and interlace them the other way. So your other thumb is on top and put it in your lap.
Awkward.
Right.
Awkward.
It feels awkward, right? So if you interlace your fingers the way you usually do, you could have them sitting in your lap. You wouldn't think about it at all. You could sit and talk to me and nothing is going on in your brain. Interlace it the other way and your brain is going, well, that's interesting, right? Because it's bringing your attention to something that's not familiar. That is one of the bases behind the method. Okay, so let's just have people sit if they can. Um, Sit in your chair, and hopefully you can get your feet on the ground.
Okay.
And just notice how you're sitting, which is something we don't think about unless we have pain, right? People have pain in their back, people have pain in their neck. They start to think about how they're sitting. They might get a pillow, right? So you can close your eyes and just scan your body. Do you have any idea where you are in space? And notice how your feet are contacting the ground. Do you actually engage your feet into the ground? Most people will sit and they have their feet curled underneath them, legs are crossed. They're not engaging the ground, right? So go ahead and just cross your feet and take your feet off the ground. Notice what that does to your low back and your spine. Then go ahead and put your feet on the ground. Just engage your feet and notice, or you may feel you get a little taller, like your head goes a little more towards the ceiling. just by that little thing, and then just push through your feet a little bit and notice how you get a little taller towards the ceiling, right? So that
Yeah.
again is just awareness of where are your feet and how do they touch the ground. Now
Interesting.
bring your attention to where you are in the chair. Like, are you in a nice big comfy chair and leaning back? Is the back of the chair holding you up? Are you sitting a little more forward away from the back of the chair? Where's your pelvis relative to where your bottom reaches the chair? So if you are engaging your feet and you're sitting right in the middle, you might feel your sitting bones contact the chair. And if you just push through your right foot, notice how the weight changes from one sitting bone to the other.
Wow, it's
Yeah.
really noticeable.
Right. Now, some people, when they push through their right foot, they're going to feel their right hip go backwards. For some people, if they push through the right foot, and you can, if people that are watching, I'm exaggerating, I'm pushing through my right foot, it shifts me left, and I'm over on my left sitting bone. Now, push through your left foot, and again, some people are going to feel that left hip go backwards. Some people may feel their left sitting bone coming up off the chair and going over to the right. So again, now we're just learning about how we are. How do we move? What happens? Now let's come up a little bit higher, your low back. Where is your low back relative to your hips, relative to your trunk? Again, are you sitting back so that you don't feel much of your sitting bones? So if you can go ahead and lean back, you come off the sitting bones a little bit. Then if you come forward and you're right over your sitting bones, you can be more in a neutral place. Now go ahead and bring your pelvis forward. You might be
Like
arching
tilted?
your low back. Yeah, so
Yeah.
you can come a little forward and bring your pelvis forward, and you get a little more of an arch in your low back, right? So we used to teach in physical therapy that, being slumped way back was terrible. You wanted to have more of an arch. There's a curve in the spine, and we used to put pillows behind there. We called lumbar support and push people upright. Well, it turns out that coming way forward on your spine also isn't good, because you're putting much more pressure now, instead of being in the middle of where your vertebrae are, you're changing the dynamic of where the weight is going. So we want to be in what's called a more neutral place. So just take your pelvis a little bit back and a little bit forward and see if you can go back and forth and find what feels like neutral for you. And when you find neutral, just go ahead and go inside. You can close your eyes and just notice, how are you sitting? And how is the comfort of your sitting?
Feels comfortable.
So you can go ahead and ask me some questions, and then I'm going to go on and I'll teach you a few more things when we get up into the head and the eyes.
Okay.
Um,
So that was really interesting, and things that people don't really think about, right? How is my movement affecting the rest of me? Um, that was quite eye-opening, I think. And I found that when I tilted my pelvis back, it actually, I could feel a change in my lower back, that like more, it felt, my spine felt straighter.
right. And so there's that balance between overarched
Yeah.
and slumped, right? So if you're slumped and then you bring your pelvis forward, you're going to lengthen and straighten out the lumbar curve a little bit. But then
Hmm.
if you come too far forward, you're going into more of an arch, and that's compressing the low back.
Hmm.
So you can get compression from being too far forward. In a certain part of the spine, you get nerve root impingement. You can get impingement from sitting too far back. This is what we find with a lot of people that have disc problems. They're slumped too far back. The weight is now going to the back of the spine and it's pushing that disc forward, right? So you can have problems in either direction. So I take that, I'm sorry, I said that backwards. But when you slump back, you're going to get compression where the disc then can get pushed backwards. We want to come a little more forward so we get that fluid away from the nerve roots.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not dyslexic, but I find that I often say forward and backwards in reverse when I'm talking about the spine. Not sure what
No,
that
no worries.
glitches in my brain.
You know, something, and maybe we'll get into this, but I did Tai Chi for years, and I remember my Tai Chi instructor always saying, my shoulders are a lot better now than they used to be, but I kind of used to be like this. And he would always say, relax your shoulders. And I'm like, they're relaxed.
Yeah.
But I mean, that was my normal position, but it wasn't a relaxed position. I've found since doing yoga over the years, I've really, really worked on getting the shoulders down and back. So maybe could we talk about the shoulders a little bit?
Yes, we'll talk about the shoulders, and we'll talk about now the difference between, it's just what you said, not having awareness and having awareness and being able to tune in. We're so used to our habits that we don't know, number one, that it's a problem or that we actually can change it. So now just notice where your head is in space. If you can have your feet on the ground, you feel your sitting bones, but where's your head? And if you were to drop a plumb line, a line through the middle of your head, down your body, does your head through that line intersect right down the middle of you? Or is your head a little bit forward of the line, a little bit back of the line, a little to the right of the line, a little to the left of the line? Most people, their heads are going to be forward. And right now I'm talking to you, I'm trying to engage the camera, I'm going to bring my head a little bit forward, right? And I know that the majority of people, when they're texting, when they're on the computer, their heads are going forward. And that's the cause of a lot of problems in the neck and shoulders.
Mm-hmm.
And what did we used to teach people? Bring your shoulders back, up and down, lift the chest, realign your head, get into what I call military posture, which is impossible to maintain as soon as you start doing something else. And in addition, trying to hold that posture is going to be fatiguing. You're taking muscles that are shortened and tightened in the front. You're trying to stretch them by using muscles in the back and asking them to hold. And that can be just as problematic as being slumped forward. So let's do a test movement.
Okay.
We're going to, I'm going to incorporate shoulders, head and neck, and eyes, and you'll just see the difference. So tune in. Just notice again where your head is and where are your shoulders in space. Do they feel a little bit forward? Are they a little bit pulled backwards? Do they feel up towards your ears?
Mine definitely feel forward a little bit.
Yeah. So have your hands in your lap, and you can close your eyes. And instead of doing what we call a shoulder roll, I'm going to ask you to just bring your right shoulder forward and then back to the middle. And notice, do you move the shoulder by itself? Do you move the shoulder and turn a little bit to the left? What do you do to bring your shoulder forward? And then see if you can tune into your collarbone. And you can even put your fingers up on your right collarbone with your opposite hand and take the shoulder a little bit forward and notice that collarbone moves. The shoulder is connected to the collarbone and also to the scapula, the wing bone in the back. It's a whole complex. And when you take that shoulder forward, you're going to have the collarbone move. And you also have a sliding of the wing bone, the scapula in the back. So see if you can tune in as you bring that shoulder forward Can you feel anything moving in the front and in the back? And do you turn? And if you're turning, you're engaging now your ribs and your spine. And just let that go. So if we're doing a full lesson, we take a lot of breaks. We have people rest. We let the brain integrate. I'm going to move a little bit faster just because we want to get a lot in a short amount of time. So now tune into taking the shoulder a little bit backwards. So again, how do you engage? Do you feel you have to go the full range of motion and really pull it back? Can you do a smaller movement and really tune in? How much of the collarbone is moving? Can you feel your shoulder blade glide on your ribs towards your spine? Do you turn a little bit now? You might be turning a little to the right. Do you feel your head want to turn? Do you feel your eyes want to turn? And just, again, notice what you do. And then take a short rest. Now take the shoulder a little up towards your ear and let it go. So you're going just in one direction. And again, it's not as easy to feel here, but your collarbone will move. Your shoulder blade will move, as well as the shoulder joint itself coming up towards the ear. And again, sense, what do you do? How much moves? And take a short rest. And again, we're on like a speed zone here. Now take that shoulder blade a little bit down. So if you're taking your shoulder down towards your hip. And again, can you tune in and see what's moving? How much of the collarbone? How much of the shoulder blade? Are your ribs compressing on that side? As the shoulder goes down towards the pelvis, are your ribs also going down? You might feel your whole side get shorter on that right side.
I have never thought so much about how my interconnected parts are moving with these little tiny movements.
Yeah. They can be very subtle and very profound. So now just sit and notice. Do you feel a difference between how your shoulder and shoulder blade felt before we started and now? And how does it compare to your left?
I can definitely feel it feels more loose than the left side, which has the head movement.
And if we had you do a shoulder roll, you wouldn't have gotten the same benefit. Right. You might have had some relief, but this is, again, it's teaching your brain that there's another option. And if you do it over time, hopefully it'll become a habit. I do want to say one caveat about Feldenkrais is when we do these movements and awareness to movement lessons, they're not something that you might do every single day in perpetuity, because again, the brain will go, been there, done that, right? You want to mix it up. You want to do a different lesson and then come back to this one. You know, if this one really works for you, you can do a little bit every day while you're on your computer to kind of reset, but it wouldn't be like doing your bicep curls that you want to do every day. And a thing about doing strength training, the brain does not understand isolated movement. You can do a bicep curl, you're going to develop tone in your biceps, but the brain doesn't, they're not interested. The brain is interested more in organic movement and how body parts are connected.
Right. So interesting, Robin, these teeny tiny subtle movements and taking the time to pay attention to them it mixes things up in the brain.
And also it's a movement that you don't normally do. I mean, we don't normally isolate a movement like that.
Yeah. And think about it.
Yeah. So again, I don't know how much time we have, if you want to go on with head and eyes, or you just want to kind of wrap up.
Well, normally this show's 30 minutes, but let's just go do the head nod thing. And I'm going to have you back on to talk about all these other modalities that you do, because it's so interesting. And your voice is so beautifully calming too, Robin.
Thank you.
Yeah, let's do this. Let's do the other
Okay,
one, the hip one.
so on your own, you can go and do your left side, right? But normally we would go do the left shoulder. But let's
Yep.
now look at our head and our neck. So just like we did with the pelvis and the low back, just tune in. Where's your head? And keep your eyes open and turn your head to the right and just see how far you go and pick a place. You know, where do you see? Where do your eyes go that you can see easily? So you have a spot you'll remember, and then come back to the middle and then turn your head left. And most people are going to have one side that feels a little bit easier than the other. And just notice, how easy was it to turn? How far did you go? This is a problem with a lot of people in driving, right? When they have to turn and look behind them.
Mhm.
So now we're going to see what's the relationship between turning and our eyes and our shoulders. So you can close your eyes or you can keep them open, but turn your head not all the way, just a little to the right, and notice what your eyes do. For most people, your eyes are going to follow and they're going to go to the right. So come back to the middle and just do that maybe 2 or 3 times. Turn and let your eyes go with you to the right. And now either pick a spot in front of you or put your finger in front of you. Look at that spot and turn your head to the right. Now
So
what
the
we're
eyes
doing,
stay on
yeah,
that spot.
the eyes stay on the spot and you turn your head to the right and come back and try to pick a spot straight ahead of you. Put your
Okay.
finger ahead of you, yeah? And do it again. Don't strain, just go a little bit. What's happening is your head is turning one way, but your eyes are actually turning the other. What we're telling to the brain, head is turning right, eyes are turning left. That is not a normal activity.
No.
Right? Babies learn, right? What do they learn? They learn to follow with their eyes, and all of a sudden, ooh, my head turned. Isn't that interesting, right? So we're telling the brain, oh, guess what? We're going to break up that pattern. Okay? Now, uh, let's put our hands on our opposite shoulders. And again, just turn to the right and let your head and your eyes go with you, and let your shoulders go with you. Let your elbows turn and come back. And do the same thing. Turn to the right and everything turns. You just go a comfortable way. Now leave your shoulders where they are and turn your head to the right. Now with your head to the right, take your eyes left and then take your eyes to the middle and take your eyes left, take your eyes to the middle, and then bring everything back to the middle. And now you're going to turn your shoulders and your elbows to the left, and you're going to take your head to the right. And come back, and don't strain, don't do too much. Try to keep your head right in midline. Just notice, does your head turn right on a plane as if it was on a plate, or is it tilting a little bit? And come back. And now gently take your head a little to the left and your shoulders to the right, your elbows to the right. Yeah. So we're mixing and matching again. We're going very quickly. This would be a whole lesson. We could take 30 minutes to just do this part, and come back. Put your arms in your lap. Take a short rest. Just notice. For some people, that's a little disorienting, taking the eyes in one direction. Now go ahead and just do the movement we did to start. Just turn your head to the right with your eyes open and see where you go.
Oh, wow.
Mm-hmm.
So much further.
Right. So
Wow.
now the idea is not just to increase our range of motion,
Right.
it's to increase comfort and increase our range of motion if we're having trouble. So when you're in the car and you have to turn behind you and look, it's so much easier if you have everything moving, your head and eyes can go comfortably, that you're not straining. So a lot of people, you know, they go, oh, my neck doesn't turn, and then they're holding their breath and then turning in pain. And, you know, pain and discomfort is not a normal part of aging. Even if you've had an injury, it doesn't mean you always have to live in discomfort, right? At any age, we can change, and at any age we can give different input to the system. So that's a little taste of Feldenkrais.
Robin, I love that message. And just with these little tools you gave us today, and I know, as you said, kind of going through it quickly, and if you're listening to this on a replay, you can pause and take your time a little bit and also repeat with the other side, I'm sure would be helpful. But these tools, like in that just that short period of time, seeing the change in range of motion, and that message about not having to be in pain is such a beautiful, beautiful message. I love it. I thank you so much for this.
You're welcome. You're so welcome.
Rowena says very interesting. I always ask my guests this one question, and that is, what's one action someone could take today to improve their health? So what would you say, Robin?
Well, we've touched on it, and that is to slow down and pay attention. Right? Slow down, pay attention. Because if you don't know what you're doing, as Moshe Feldenkrais used to say, you can't do what you want. So we need to first learn what we're doing.
Wow.
And let your body find a way to be in grace and more optimal movement and efficiency. And slowing down, paying attention is the first step.
Thank you so much for that. That is really, really beautiful. Slow down and pay attention. Robin, I know you've got a gift that you wanted a promotional item you had for our listeners. So would you like to talk about that briefly? And I'll
Sure. So people can find me at an HTTPS protected site called yourhealingjourney.net. I do Feldenkrais classes. And I'll be doing a 4-week, what I call a deep dive into Feldenkrais, where we spend time talking about the physiology, why it works, spending a little more time at the lesson, having time at the end for questions and answers, and then looking at people's individual needs, because it's usually a smaller group, if they're having a specific problem. So that's 4 weeks. I'll be starting a new one in March. It's March 11th, and then it'll end on April 1st. And I'm giving your listeners a $47 discount on that.
Wow.
They have to use the code when they go in to sign up, called Hogan, all lowercase 47. That'll bring the course down to $100.
Wow. I will share the link. I'll just kind of share it here now. So in case people want to, there we go. In case people, there it is.
Right. And the date says February 2021, because that's when one of the first class went live. And I'm going to have my tech people double check that. I think it's the same course. We just updated the dates, but the link will say 2021, and it's really going to be March of 2022. When you go into the deep dive section to sign up, it'll have the correct date on it. And if there's a problem, because I seem to have tech gremlins, just email me, Robin at yourhealingjourney.net.
Okay. And so the discount, the code is Hogan47, and it's just lowercase, or I guess maybe it doesn't matter. I don't know. You gave it to me as lowercase.
Lowercase, it will matter. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
For a $47 discount. That's beautiful. Thank you so much for that gift for the listeners, Robin. And I'll have all your links and everything there in the show notes so that people can avail of this, and really excited about this. That was amazing. That was amazing. I think I'm going to do the course.
Great.
I really think that sounds interesting. And I love that body awareness. So Robin, I can't thank you enough for this. This has been fabulous.
Well, I thank you for the opportunity to teach. I love to teach and to get the word out. So thank you for that.
Well, I'm definitely going to have you back to talk about all these other modalities, because each one of them are interesting, could be a show in their own right. But thank you so much for teaching us and introducing us to Feldenkrais today. And thanks for being the guest.
Again, you're very welcome.
All right. Bye, everyone. Thanks for watching.